Thank you everybody for joining us, wherever you are in the world. I'd just like to make a few comments before we hand over to our great lineup of speakers. This webinar is being recorded and it will be uploaded on the IEA website. I'd like very much to thank our speakers, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, the ASEAN Centre for Energy, the ESCO Association from both China and from Asia Pacific, for joining us today to talk about this really important subject of how energy efficiency can play a leading role in economic recovery in Asia. We'll just briefly go through the agenda, if you could put that up, please. So we're going to go through a series of short presentations, starting with Dr. Brian Motherway, the Head of Energy Efficiency of the IEA, going to India, then to ASEAN, then to China, and then to the Philippines. And then we'll have a discussion. We'll wrap up after that discussion. So we do have questions for the speakers, but if there's anything that you'd like to send in chat, then please do let us know. And with that, I will start and I will hand over to Brian to talk about the IEA's work on energy efficiency and economic recovery. So Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Melanie, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for this very important event, and we're very pleased to have so many colleagues joining us for this discussion. And I'd particularly like to thank, obviously, our friends in the ASEAN Centre for Energy, and of course in the Bureau of Energy Efficiency in India, and not least our good friend Abhay Bakre, who's going to speak in a few minutes. I'd also like to thank Lily from the EMCA and Alex from the ESCO Industry Alliance of Asia Pacific. So thank you to all for working with us and helping us put together this important webinar. And I'm looking forward to hearing from all of you in due course. Let me just say a few words of context from our perspective. First of all, we still live in a world, of course, of COVID-19. We do wish all of our colleagues and friends well. We hope that the impact of the pandemic hasn't been too severe on you. We'll be talking not about the health dimensions today, but the energy and climate dimensions. Next slide, please, Jesse. And first of all, our starting point is, since March, really, the world has been in various degrees of lockdown. It's tracked in different ways, but it's worth noting that still very large proportions of our societies and economies remain at least partially, if not totally, contained or locked down to certain degrees. And of course, this has tremendous impacts on our energy system, dramatically reducing our mobility, reducing our energy demand in transport, of course, affecting our energy demand in our daily lives, whether we're working from home or not, whether schools are open or not. The implications for the energy system are very profound. And of course, it has really shaken economies, shaken consumer confidence, and shaken investment patterns. So in the next slide, you'll see that according to our analysis, we expect investment in all aspects of the energy system to be down in 2020, which is not really a surprise. And in energy efficiency, we expect in total investment in energy efficiency activities to be down by at least 12%. And that is after several years of flat activity in a period where we should really be seeing growth if we want to fully exploit the opportunities of energy efficiency to bolster economies, reduce energy bills, reduce emissions, and make people's lives better. So let's look now at the path of greenhouse gas emissions, where it has come from and where it might go to. In 2019, in the last economic shock, we saw a dip for 1 year in greenhouse gas emissions, but then we saw a rapid recovery by a return to economic activity, structural strengthening in some sectors, and policies for economic recovery that were partially but not fully aligned with clean energy and decarbonisation goals. So in 2020, we've seen the most dramatic fall in emissions ever recorded, but for all the wrong reasons. And this is not something to be celebrated because it's based on economic curtailment and social, health and economic impacts on all of our lives. So what happens next is up to us. And we can look now at two possible futures for emissions. Next slide, please. First of all, without a sustainable recovery, there's no reason to believe that emissions will not start to grow again. As economies start to recover, as stimulus starts to kick in, and hopefully as life starts to return to normal very soon, Without the right policy actions, emissions will grow once again. But IEA analysis shows that a different future is possible based on what we call a sustainable recovery plan that drives emissions down permanently and makes 2019 the historic peak for emissions to which we never return. So IEA's plan for sustainable recovery, next slide please, Josie, is based on putting together the goals of boosting the economy, creating jobs, and improving energy resilience and sustainability. All of these items have been hot policy imperatives for many years, but clearly the world we find ourselves in 2020 puts stronger emphasis on all of these together. And how can we do these in a coherent and concerted manner that also puts us on the right track for a clean energy future? Well, in the next slide, you'll see that the investment behind such a plan cuts across many sectors, but the biggest single area of activity is energy efficiency. And this will be no surprise to people on this discussion, because we know that energy efficiency can be mobilized quickly to create and support jobs, to generate economic activity, but also to lock in efficiency gains for the future with all the social, economic, and environmental benefits that can bring. Next slide, please. The reason why efficiency features so strongly is because when we look at the various areas of spend that economic stimulus might align with clean energy, the IEA is making it clear that there are many opportunities for clean energy and economic recovery to go hand in hand. And of course, it cuts across all sectors and many, many types of technologies. But central and probably most principally to all of this is energy efficiency. In the next slide, you'll see the reason for that, because when you measure the job creation potential, particularly the short-term job creation potential of many different technologies, sectors, and activities, you can see very clearly that energy efficiency comes out top in many ways, whether that's in urban transport, whether it's in buildings, new buildings or building retrofit, whether it's in industrial energy efficiency. The job support potential per $1 million of investment is very high in many energy efficiency sectors. And therefore, the opportunity for energy efficiency to be front and center in economic recovery plans around the world, the rewards of this are very clear. In the next slide, we think maybe a little bit about the longer term as well, noting that IEA analysis shows that we have huge energy efficiency potential around the world that remains untapped. And if we look over the next 2 decades, we see that there's an opportunity to literally double global energy efficiency levels, and that's only exploiting technologies that are already in existence and already cost effective. So the potential for energy efficiency improvement is massive, and the benefits that that energy efficiency can bring to all societies and economies, whether it's in reducing energy imports, whether it's in avoiding expenditure in industry, or whether it's reducing all of our own energy bills, as well as the wider benefits in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, reduced air pollution, and greater resilience of energy systems. I think we all know that in 2020, our interest in building more resilient, more equitable, and more sustainable energy systems, reducing costs for all, making business more competitive, making cities cleaner and more livable, these goals are more at the top of our minds than ever before. And therefore, the role of energy efficiency in supporting these goals is very clear. Next slide, please. Now, we know that's the theory, but how can this be done in practice? So we at the IEA have been looking at some of the lessons from the last decades in terms of energy policies, particularly in the context of economic recovery, and what we can learn that governments may want to draw upon in their thinking now as they plan their economic stimulus actions and their next clean energy and energy efficiency measures in 2020 and beyond. First of all, for energy efficiency, we know that there are many actions that are what they call shovel ready, whether it's upgrading buildings that are currently empty, whether it's mobilizing existing supply chains in the retrofit sector, whether it's stimulating activity in existing markets. We know that there are opportunities to generate economic activity and support jobs quickly. This is often best done when there are existing programs, structures, or supply chains in place. And we see successes in governments using schemes, maybe expanding them or transferring them to other sectors, but using systems and administration that is already in place. Equally, it seems likely that if you want to drive short-term impact, standardization can be very important, whether that's in standardization of the technologies and the standards, but also obviously contracts, designs, and methodologies. And we also encourage governments to think about what is the right level of ambition to drive locking in energy efficiency gains for the future, but in a way that doesn't delay uptake and delivery in the short term. Next slide, please. A lot of energy efficiency activities will be driven by incentives, and we already see many governments around the world committing very significant amounts of funding to incentives that will then leverage many times more in private investments. And it's important that this level of investment and this level of state incentive in particular is pitched right so that it can get activity moving quickly, but it doesn't either flood the market with the wrong kind of solutions or create boom bust cycles. Equally, now is the perfect time to think about the regulatory barriers and the practical barriers that energy efficiency faces, and maybe use the increasing focus on efficiency as a stimulus action as well as a clean energy action to simplify procedures, remove red tape, and create lasting change to energy efficiency markets. And really that's what it's about. How can we turn short-term impacts into long-term transformations, particularly one way or the other in the coming couple of years? There's going to be a huge amount of build, of appliance replacement, of vehicle replacement, and it's important that we avoid locking in inefficiency into those assets and instead lock in efficiency that will stay with us for a long time. So before I close, I want to say a few things about some of the activities the IEA is engaged with that we hope all of you can find useful in your work. First of all, I want to draw attention to the Global Commission for Urgent Action on Energy Efficiency, which brought together 23 national leaders, ministers, business executives, and thought leaders from literally every corner of the world to make a set of recommendations on how governments could act to accelerate progress and impact on the ground in energy efficiency. You will find their recommendations on our website, which are very focused on early and immediate actions that governments can take, and you can see them in the next slide, that are very much aligned with short-term goals, economic stimulus, job creation, as well as longer-term clean energy goals, making economies more efficient, more fair, and more sustainable and resilient. And I commend you to look at these recommendations if you're interested in learning from best practice around the world in terms of how governments, states, individuals, and companies can act to accelerate energy efficiency. In the next slide, I just want to mention briefly some of our work in the region that we're discussing today. And again, I want to thank all of our partners that are involved in today's webinar, and particularly the speakers that are going to follow me. So some great collaboration that certainly we are very excited about, whether it's our work with the ASEAN community on buildings, cooling, and training, whether it's our great work with the leadership that Bureau of Energy Efficiency has been showing in India around energy efficiency and economic recovery, which we'll hear about, but also the many policies across many sectors that India is leading on. Of course, China as well. We are very pleased to be working with China, including our partners in EMCA, but also in government and other agencies on many aspects of energy efficiency policy. And of course, you'll be hearing a lot more from us in the coming weeks and months around new, accelerated and enhanced global collaboration on product efficiency standards. And I know that the Asia region is really primed to show even greater leadership in this sector and benefit from the economic, social, and environmental gains that come from stronger standards and stronger policies in relation to product efficiency, as well as many other sectors. Finally, let me just mention that our website is a resource for all of you. And in the next slide, you'll see that we have published a number of articles and analysis pieces in recent months that pertain to today's discussion. So I invite you to look at our website and see some of our recent discussion on how energy efficiency can boost economies in the current context, some of the key policies that are available, some of the lessons we've learned from policies and actions over the last couple of decades, and some of the lessons we continue to learn from our partners around the world, including our partners on the call today. And I would also mention that later this morning, after this webinar, the IEA will launch its 2020 edition of the World Energy Outlook, which will show our latest analysis of the impacts of COVID on the energy system, but also the tremendous opportunities to align clean energy goals and decarbonization goals with economic stimulus and economic recovery activities, which are going to be the subject of today's discussion. So I look forward to the rest of the discussion. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, for setting the scene so clearly for us. And I think for making the point so firmly that we have, a once in a lifetime opportunity here to use this moment for good, to avoid lock-in and make sure that we have positive change as a result. And I think this morning's presentations will allow us to explore how that can happen in practice in the context of emerging Asia. Before I go to the next speaker, could I just ask all of our speakers to turn their cameras on so that we can just take a family photo before we proceed? So Lily, if you could turn your camera on, please, that would be great. Thank you very much. Okay, smile for the camera, everybody. Okay, should we assume that's done? Thank you. Okay, thanks Brian very much again, and let's now move on to our presentation from India, from Mr. Bakre. Mr. Bakre, we're so grateful for you for joining us today, and we're very interested in listening to how this opportunity plays out in India. The floor's yours.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Brian, all panelists and participants. It's indeed pleasure to participate in this a very important seminar on how to shape up the economic recovery with the help of energy efficiency, and what is this important role of energy efficiency in contributing the economic recovery, especially the energy sector in India. And I'm going to just show a couple of slides to put forth my points, what kind of opportunities exist in India, and what are the current policies which can help to great extent in recovering the current situation and putting our economy, especially the energy side of supply as well as demand, towards a sustainable recovery. Next slide, please. I hope my voice is clear.
Very clear, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So, as you know, Bureau of Energy Efficiency is the nodal body under the Government of India, Ministry of Power, to prepare the policies. There is an act of law which empowers Bureau, and also we are able to roll out many programs and schemes, whether it's mandatory or voluntary. We have also been given a very important task of every year, post completion of every financial year, we are able to actually verify the real impact of energy efficiency policies and measures, and we try to get it on a more conservative manner. Only the impact which is verifiable we are able to pick up, but in a very scientific manner through bottom-up approach for every sector, for every program. So if we can see the summary which gives actually the clear confidence to every participant, every stakeholder, the kind of potential exists and the kind of impact we are having, even though on the conservative side. Electricity being obviously the costlier form of energy in India because it's cleaner form, has shown considerable savings, like 136 billion units, which is almost 10% of the total consumption in India. And in terms of thermal, we have around 3.15 million ton of oil equivalent. All put together, almost 24 million ton of oil equivalent, which is worth in terms of different cost of fuels more than 12 billions US dollars. In terms of CO2 emissions, as we can see, in the year 1890 itself, it was 150 plus million ton of CO2. We have an overall trajectory to surpass 500 million ton of CO2 by 2030 through various policies and accelerators. Although not a very significant parameter now, when India has become an energy surplus country in last 3-4 years. But even if we track, otherwise, if the energy is not saved, we would have needed additional 43 gigawatt of electric power in that. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, even if we start from the baseline somewhere in 2011-12, when the real policies started taking shape from Bureau, a Bureau which is not a very old organization, only set up in 2002, and the voluntary policies started coming out from 2006-7, and by the time we entered into mandatory regime, it was somewhere about 2008-9. So the impact was visible from 2011 onwards, and if we have taken this baseline, as of now, we have reached to a situation that by 18-19 itself, we had almost, we can see 4% of the primary energy consumption saving every year. And as I said, it is increasing every year with more policies and more coverage on the consumer groups and the target groups. Next slide, please. It also gives a very important aspect, or the result is about the decreasing the energy intensity of the Indian economy. That's the more important parameter for today's discussion about economic recovery, that how can we have, for the same amount of energy consumption, how can we have higher GDP output in different sectors. And this has been happening in the last, as I said, almost 8 to 10 years. We have come almost 15% of decrease in energy intensity, but we believe in coming years it will further go down with more number of cover sectors being covered on the economic side, and penetration of the flagship programs to a larger consumer group. Next slide, please. As I said, the successful programs have been in the large industry, which have witnessed almost 4.9 billion USD in 1 year itself. Appliances being the oldest programs started in 2006 and almost completing now 15 years, has given almost $3.5 billion US saving per year. You're also aware about the significant success of the Ujala program, where we have deployed more than 10 billion LED bulbs throughout the country, and at the same time now we are having more than 1 crore street light being deployed in the public area and the rural as well as urban area. So these are the 4 areas where the impact have been maximum, and the savings in terms of CO2 as well as the monetary saving have been significant. But these programs give a lot of indication as well as the confidence to the investors, to the policymakers, to the consumers, the kind of impact it can offer to every consumer group. Next slide, please. Considering the impact achieved so far since 2011 and up to the 2019-20 also, we have the rough numbers, but we have also we have prepared and formulated a strategy in terms of a bottom-up calculation and estimation on what kind of saving potential exists for the next 10 years, say from 2020 to 2030. And even in the most conservative scenario, we can have a total consumption of energy in terms of consumption side, almost 876 million ton of oil equivalent. But we expect with the moderate policies implementation, 86 million ton, which is almost 10% of the consumption side saving potential existing in the next 10 years, which gives that CO2 reduction, as I said, a moderate target of 400 plus, but we are targeting excess of 500 million ton of CO2. But most important thing is that the bottom-up approach has also given different sectors and the large amount of consumer consumer base, which are yet to be benefited from the energy efficiency measures. Those measures, as Brian very clearly said, which are already successful, which are already proven, and we need the new consumer groups or coverage to the maximum possible extent. In this regard, even though the total potential which is shown is $143 billion in the next 10 years, we are having almost 10% of that. It's about 1 to 1.2 billion, 10 to 12 billion US dollars per year investment altogether, with the maximum potential exist in the 185, and the maximum potential exists in the industry, followed by buildings and the transport sector. This is also a trajectory we can meet almost half of our India's overall CO2 commitment, and that's why I believe that there will be a lot of push from all departments from government, which can pursue effective policies and making it a very good case for every investment in all potential sectors, thereby encouraging the adoption of energy efficiency measures. Next slide. So with this scenario and the potential already estimated, the kind of the impact already proven, the availability of consumer base, the technologies, the proven policies, the kind of deployment. So we are able to see, this is the last slide, that what kind of economic recovery option exists, and the government and the ministry is quite positive on reaping the overall benefits in the today's situation. If we pick up improving the base of domestic manufacturing, which means that not only the technologies on industry side, the industrial appliances, compressors, motors, etc., high efficiency product. At the same time, at the domestic sector also, we are able to have a successful appliances program. Energy efficient appliances can be given higher priority in domestic manufacturing, BE star level products, which can meet to a larger extent the demand for the consumers with lot of persuasion, awareness generation. But at the same time, the manufacturers are encouraged, the nearby countries or even other potential countries, they can have collaboration for their export of their energy efficient products. So that gives a biggest point or the agenda for economic recovery. Secondly, as I said, when the technologies are created and then manufactured, and there are consumer groups which is available to deploy such potential, there is always investment through ESCO model available, so that the right kind of technology is available at the affordable price to the consumers, which they can pay back in the coming years through their energy efficiency. So without any initial upfront investment, the industry can deploy efficient technology, thereby recovering their own businesses in a much more effective and a sustainable manner. It is also equally applicable for the large industry as well as SME sector. In particular, the technologies which the BE is pursuing, not only in terms of the larger processes, but even the smaller technologies, smaller components which have been deployed as a pilot project so far by BE. We believe there exists a lot of potential. SMEs being a backbone for our industrial economy, they will have a great opportunity, and we believe that a considerable investment is possible in the SME sector. In this sector, we also believe that a kind of professional cadre, operation and maintenance kind of service personnel can be deployed as an additional business case, business propositions, where the small enterprises can create more and more of a servicing opportunity by creating new technologies and their maintenance and handling, which is very much required by the SME sector, who are otherwise occupied with their day-to-day business cases. In terms of other ancillary areas like cold chain sector, which is a new sector based on the food and the agriculture scenario in the country, a lot exists about the energy efficiency development in cold chain and the cold storage plants. We have done a very recent report which is available, likely to be available very soon. It will not only create a lot of skilled manpower and the job opportunity, but entirely a new business case of very energy efficient but highly effective cold agriculture sector. Finally, we have technologies which can be adopted in buildings. We can have a deep retrofitting of old hospitals, government buildings, institutions, schools, colleges, and all new buildings can be improved with the new materials. Energy efficient materials can get a good push on their construction, including whether it's energy efficient glasses, insulation, bricks, all other kinds of, including the electronic systems, the smart meters, etc. All these opportunities, whether it's building, SME, industry, products of efficiency, have a great potential in India. The policies exist there. We need a larger push, consumer buying, their confidence to be increased, and the right kind of a deployment opportunities as well as investment mechanisms so that all sectors can be benefited. Each sector has its own way of deployment, but I think the current opportunities or the current situation can be converted into a very useful opportunities for getting the energy sector into a very effective, energy efficient and green recovery for India. Thank you once again, IEA. We are very much appreciating the work done by your team, as well as all the association with the Bureau in all its policies, including the current situation and the future action. Thank you once again for inviting me here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. And your description of the impressive results that have already been achieved by the portfolio of energy efficiency policies in India, I think it's really pertinent to the conversation today, because you have already got these policies in place, they're well established, the infrastructure to roll them out is really well refined. Then this hopefully will be an opportunity for India to show us the way, to lead the way also in using energy efficiency as a tool for economic recovery, because everything is also well up and well established. And you really have, of course, in your presentation recognised the issues associated with, locking in, bad decisions at this stage. I think also the point about domestic manufacturing is something that's going to be very interesting to other parts of the region. Using this as an opportunity to break into new markets and to get the economic and job benefits of doing just that. So thank you very much. And on that point, let's go to another really important sub-region within Asia that's growing in terms of its energy demand much faster than anywhere else in the world. And on this note, I would like to pass to Rio from the ASEAN Centre for Energy to talk about how he sees ASEAN's road to a green economic recovery. So Rio, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours. Rio, I can't hear you at the moment.
I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Melanie, and good afternoon, everyone. From Jakarta, so I'm Rio Jan Peter Silitonga. So I'm coming from ASEAN Center for Energy, as introduced by Melanie. So first of all, thank you for the IEA for inviting the ASEAN Center for Energy in this webinar. And today I'd like to present about the impact of the COVID to energy efficiency progress in us, and also the impact to the energy efficiency progress in ASEAN, and also the trends of energy efficiency sectoral intervention as well. I think everyone aware of the struggling of the COVID-19 to energy efficiency progress in ASEAN. Not an exception. The region of ASEAN also experiencing the economic damage. So there is a lot of impact to the economic, but I like to really present about what the impact actually to the energy efficiency progress in ASEAN from the kind of COVID-19 pandemic. Sorry, could you back to the table content? So yeah, my presentation today actually has as objectives to share to everyone about the ASEAN energy demand trend, as I mentioned, including the impact of the COVID, some recommendations as well to the for the policymakers in ASEAN to have a recovery plan for the ASEAN member state, and including how actually the regional integration approach in energy efficiency for the economic recovery plans. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. So this is the figure of the ASEAN energy mix from 2005 to 2017. So according to the current statistics of ASEAN Center for Energy, regional energy supply is about 625 MTOE in 2017, and it is expected to have been around 1,500 MTOE in the next 20 years. Energy efficiency policy is expected to play a key role for meeting the ASEAN energy targets as indicated on the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Corporations. So according to the figure, we can see that TPS actually is considerably increased during the projection period. And however, substantial saving can be identified through the policy scenarios of ACE, through the either ATS ASEAN target scenario and also as ASEAN plan advanced plan scenario or APS. So according to the figure that in 2017, in all scenarios, we can see that oil is either in the business as usual scenarios and also ASEAN target scenario. And we can see that stronger growth in some ASEAN member states have led to increase the demand of coal. So this is need intervention in order we can really achieve the sustainable goals in ASEAN region. Next, please. So we can see from this slide regarding the ASEAN total final energy consumption. So I think everyone is aware that ASEAN is a growing region. The energy demand of the 10 ASEAN member states has grown by 6% over the past 15 years and is projected to increase by 50 to 100% over the next 20 years, according to the statistic. And we can see from this figure that the growth of natural gas consumption is highly significant compared to the increase of other fuels, because it is widely consumed by the industrial sector. This makes it is important to observe how indicators are influenced by major sectors in ASEAN. The energy-intensive sectors of industry and transport, we can see from the figure, dominate the total final energy consumption, share until 2040 with 41.2% to 37.1%, respectively, followed instantly by the resident sectors, which is 10%. Next, please. So regarding the breakdown, how actually the performance of final energy demand by sectors in ASEAN, taking from industrial sectors and commercial. So these both sectors has accounted for significant energy final consumption in ASEAN energy mix. So according to the current statistics and also the current growth trend, so without any significant improvement in energy efficiency, the commercial and industrial sectors will have the most notable demand growth, with growth of 4.8% and 4.4% respectively, according to the current statistic of ACE. Next, please. Another sector's breakdown is for the residential energy demand. So these figures showing up to you about how the trend of energy by field type. So from the figure, we can see the large portion of energy demand is provided by traditional biomass in the region, which is in turn largely associated with cooking, and it also driven upwards by growth of the population. So very much important to find and to put forward, to put intervention forward in order we can really to see the reduction of the use of the traditional biomass for the cooking use in the region. But in terms of the electrifications and improved standard of living in ASEAN, lead for residential sectors, lead to increase of ownership rate of various electrical appliances. according to the statistic, which is increasing the electricity demand in the sectors which grow to 497.1 terawatt hour in 2014. And energy consumption for cooling takes up a large share in electricity demand, which is comprised of refrigeration 20%, fans 8%, and air conditioning 24%. Meanwhile, lighting accounts for 18% of electricity demand in house, according to the current statistics. Next, please. Just want to say to everyone that actually the establishment of the commitment or cooperation, the blueprint among 10 ASEAN member states has been started in year 2000. And then currently ASEAN has what we call ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation for 2016 to 2025, which is divided into two phases. Now we are on the phase one, ranging from 2016 to 2022. So this is the blueprint for energy cooperation in ASEAN that covers 7 programs areas, as you can see on the slide. So it includes ASEAN Power Grid, Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline, Clean Coal Technology, Energy Efficiency and Conservation, Renewable Energy, and Regional Policy and Planning, including sort of targets for each program areas. Next, please. Next, please. In terms of where are we now in terms of the sustainable energy achievement? So ASEAN recognized that EE and RE as the pillar of the sustainable energy. So we are currently monitoring and also doing statistics in order we can really see where are we now in terms of the achievement of EE and RE. So specifically related to the EE, under the ASEAN Plan of Action, just want to share that ASEAN has a target of energy intensity reduction to reduce 20% by 2020 based on 2005 level. So as of 2018, ASEAN has exceeded the target by achieving 24% ER reduction based on 2005 level. Next, please. So for the energy efficiency in ASEAN, regionally, both national and regional level, as I mentioned, in the regional level, we have already commitment that been indicated in the APEC 2016 to 2020. And from the national level, we've seen that ASEAN member states have been in connection, realization of the need for energy efficiency seen for many years ago. So we see from the figures how the policy plans and acts, also financing instruments have been developed in ASEAN member states. Some ASEAN member states have been developing energy efficiency act and also policies in order to really promote and achieving energy saving goals and contribute to the regional target. In particular, the financings, we have seen 2 kind of financing mechanisms that have been developed in ASEAN, including the traditional and also in the early maturity of innovative financing mechanism, including the use of the green bond, the inclusion of the energy insurance. So in terms of maturity, traditional innovative mechanism, according to our study, is still dominant in ASEAN e-financing instrument for realization of energy efficiency. But in the early stage, on the utilization of the green bond and also energy saving instruments to guarantee the energy efficiency projects. So this is something that we have been working in order we can really able to further develop and also promote innovative e-financing mechanism for the realization of energy investment, not just only to achieve energy saving, but to create a job for the job creations in each ASEAN member state. Yes, please. ASEAN Center for Energy is intergovernmental organizations, which was established by 10 ASEAN member states in order to identify and also initiate and also implement energy cooperation, including energy efficiency program in ASEAN. So this is the approach that we have been identified under the ASEAN Plan of Action, also we call APAC 2016-2020. So ASEAN, as I mentioned, has a target on energy efficiency to reduce 20% by 2020 and 30% by 2025. And the ASEAN Center for Energy Efficiency, the ASEAN Center for Energy is mandated to be the center to expedite the adoption of energy efficiency policy and technology in the region. So this is the approach, what actually we've been doing, that we can really achieve the energy saving target under the ASEAN Plan of Action. So we have been doing a lot of research, especially on the building industry and also developing roadmap. And also we have been doing we have been working together with other partners and international organizations in order we can really able to stimulate the market through financing mechanism and also some raising awareness information, capacity building and training. As your information that we have assisted ASEAN to enhance energy management training by providing free training for ASEAN citizens on energy manager training and including certifications. We have been doing also standard harmonizations in order we can support the barriers remover for the trading among 10 ASEAN member states. So there's a lot of, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but we need to wrap up so that we can keep on time. So which can we close? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this is the I mean, talking about the impact of the COVID-19. So according to the current statistics of ACE, so we have seen a lot of electricity demand falls in ASEAN countries, and hopefully this is not just a short event, but we really want to see these electricity demand falls in ASEAN in the future. So next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, in terms of what actually the impact of the COVID to the progress of energy efficiency. So we have seen a lot of policy have been postponed. For example, in Malaysia, that is supposed to put the legislation of the Energy Efficiency Act. By this year, they will postpone until 2021. And then in Indonesia also, we have seen a lot of budget cut for the green energy green funding. So this is something that been happen among the national member states that put a risk for the energy efficiency progress in ASEAN. Please. Yeah, in terms of the GP, because of the COVID impact, we've seen also some downtrend of energy GDP among the national member states. So GDP recession impacts the lower energy demand in energy service consequently. Next, please. In terms of the COVID-19 and ASEAN energy sector, we can see what actually the impact the impact to the lower energy demand that make lower energy demand, also halted the power projects in ASEAN member state, and also emerging stimulus packages. For particular for energy efficiency, there is a declining, also a challenge for the private sectors to get on collateral E project, and also put some delay on the E project in ASEAN region. Next, please. So moving forward, and also what actually the recommendation of the plan for the regional, in order we can really put energy efficiency as the in the plan of economic recovery. So to draw the policymakers in ASEAN member states is expected to draw up the national programs for housing and industrial commercial buildings that are known to have potential to perform better in terms of energy efficiency. And also the implementation of EE and related investment will not only create immediate energy saving, but job opportunities. I think this is obviously have been recognized by ASEAN member states. That's why contributing directly to the business recovery. And also the grant is supported by the financing must be functional to MFA system in order to build up the trustworthy among the project developers, financial institutions, also policymakers. And also the incentive from the government also to target incentive, to put incentive and also some tax allowance in order we can really increase the appetite of energy efficiency project in ASEAN. And very much important is the last but not least to encourage greater participation from the designing and also until the implementation of the project in energy efficiency in order to increase the trustworthy among market players. So that's all my presentation. Next, please. Next, please.
Thank you very much, Rio. That's
thank you. How about you, Melanie? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the comprehensive overview of how things are going in ASEAN. I think it's really, we had heard that some governments were going to be, maybe delaying action around the world. And this is one of the reasons we started this stream of work, to demonstrate to governments how much they could take an opportunity at the moment to do more rather than to do less. So hopefully the information that we can provide through a webinar like this and working with you directly after this can help redress some of those decisions and hopefully make sure that we can see ASEAN take full benefit from this opportunity. So thanks for that. We're going to move now on to China. And we've had a couple of comments about how the private sector can play a major role in this sort of recovery plan. And one of the tools that's well known around the world is to work with energy service companies. And of course, the energy service market in China is one of the most influential and successful in the world. And so it's a great pleasure to introduce my great friend Lily Zhao to introduce how ESCOs can play a role in green recovery in China. So Lily, the floor is yours.
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Could you turn your camera on, please, Lily?
Probably no. I think that's the slides will be more interesting. Because I'm at home, it's just in a mess. So really quite happy to share the ESCO experience in China. Actually, I've repeated these stories all around the world for so many times. So it's I hope it's not so boring to all of you. So today I'm going to talk about the ESCO development in China within the past 20 years, especially with the support of the government policies, which is, I think, the most impressive probably in the world. And secondly, I would like to share with you the benefits of ESCOs.
Lily, we can't see your slides, sorry.
Oh, really? Sorry.
No. Okay. And in the interest of time, perhaps you could emphasize what you think can be done building on the ESCO experience in China. What do we do going forward?
Can you see?
I think they're coming. Yes, now, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to share with you the benefits of ESCOs for our economic growth and also especially for the clean energy transition. And the last one, I would like to share with you the future opportunities and challenges for the ESCOs in China. Next one. Yeah. Probably as most of people knows that Chinese ESCO actually are driven mainly by the government. In the past 20 years, I can say the government is really leading the market for ESCOs especially. And of course, the market demanding is there because China has such a big market, especially for the energy efficiency. So that's really the great demand for energy efficiency, which is a great market as well for the ESCOs in China. And finally, and most importantly, is the economic driving. And all the ESCOs have to make money. So we can see that the government really played a very important role to promote the ESCO business. And they set up the target, and they also worked out lots of standards and lots of national programs like the top runners. And most importantly, there were some very important incentive policies put forward to encourage the ESCO business as well. So I think mainly the government is trying to create a market and also trying to improve the environment for the market. That's the role which the government can play. But for mainly the stakeholders in the market is the energy users and ESCOs, and I think they play different roles as well in the market. And here I listed some of the incentive policies from the Chinese government in the past 10 years, especially during the last 10 years. And there is a direct financial award for the ESCOs, and also there is the tax incentives as well. For some of the ESCOs, they can get the preference tax policies, even the tax exemption policies. And the government is also trying to improve the public accounting systems in order for the ESCOs to enter the a very important sector, market sector, government buildings. But there are still some barriers right now. And of course, the green financing plays a very important role to the ESCO development as well. So we can see that the market are creating the market, the government are creating the market by setting up the energy consumption target, and also they also set up some energy efficiency limit for most of the energy consumers. And we have some national energy efficiency programs, of course. So all these, I think, are the reasons for the Chinese ESCOs development. That's for the green financing. Lots of banks, and they set up special teams to work on the green financing, and also mainly focusing on the energy efficiency and ESCO business as well. So lots of money goes to these sectors. Here are some of the numbers which you can see. I don't want to read these numbers. That's just to show the trend of Chinese ESCO development in the past 20 years. But we can see in the last 5 years, the growth rate is slowing down, but the numbers are still growing, both the ESCO numbers and the number of employees, and also the revenues of the ESCOs, and the energy performance contracting investment, and also the energy savings, as well as the CO2 reductions. All these numbers shows that Chinese ESCOs are still on the highway for growth, even though it's growing very slowly, but it's still growing. So we can see the role of ESCO actually is all the benefits of ESCO. It's not only for the ESCO itself, it's also have social and environmental benefits as well. It saves not only the money, but also it creates a lot of job opportunities and makes the economic prosperous as well. So right now, Chinese ESCOs are moving from the I call it MCS, from mayor to market. That means the government are drawing back, but the market are playing a more important role. They are trying to be more sustainable in the market by themselves. And so we're still facing some challenges as well. Today, I would like to mention, especially for the job creations, we can see that the ESCO development actually create a lot of jobs in the ESCO itself, but also it creates lots of jobs in some other sectors. For the energy user side, we can see that lots of energy users, they set up energy management teams in their own industries or the buildings as well. And also the third parties, more and more third parties get involved in this business as a new growing market for themselves, like M&V and green investors, auditors, even legal specialists. More and more people are getting involved as well. And I'm glad to see that some of the universities, they are trying to set up specials in their university to educate more students and trying to create more jobs for the students as well. I can see there are great opportunities for China ESCOs in the next 10, even longer time, 40 years, probably, because as you know that we have a promise that we're going to reach the peak time of carbon emission in 2030, and we're going to achieve the carbon nutrition in 2060. That's really quite ambitious, but I think it's quite impossible. So actually, to me, this is a quite important signal to show that China are going to take more steps forward to improve the energy efficiency, and the ESCO will have a very important role to play in this side. So there is a national target we have to achieve in the next, we have 5 years before 2060. So we're in a new stage of decarbonization and digitalization. So to achieve this target, so there are lots of things we can do to develop new and renewable energies, and also for the energy storage and energy efficiency, energy management systems, etc. But I think ESCOs are not only working on the energy efficiency itself right now. More and more ESCOs are trying to provide a solution for the energy users, including the energy supply, energy storage, energy efficiency, and also energy management. So ESCO is no longer doing the retrofit projects for the buildings. They are trying to, to manage the whole energy systems for the buildings, for example. So that's why we still can see great opportunities as well for the ESCOs in the next 40 years. And of course, the government also put forward very important policies, and lots of documents has been issued, making sure that they are trying to have a more friendly and sustainable environment for the energy efficiency, and especially for the ESCOs as well. So I think that's all for my presentation, and I'm running out of my time. And if you have any questions, I'm ready here to answer all your questions.
Thank you so much, Lily, and thank you for being so quick. It would have been lovely to take a bit more time over that. It was a great presentation, and we particularly like the graphics. But we can talk about that perhaps in more detail another time. One of the things, again, similar comment to the comment I made for India, because you have so much in place, so much infrastructure, so many people trained, you really do have an opportunity to accelerate energy efficiency progress in this time when hopefully a great deal of investment is going to be pointed towards energy efficiency. So it will be great to see the outcomes in China on that. And clearly, as always, we're very much happy to work with you along the way. So thanks very much indeed. And we'll move on to our last speaker, to Alex, who also has an ESCO background and is looking at how energy efficiency can be used for job creation and economic stimulus in the Southeast Asia region, but in Philippines in particular. So Alex, the floor is yours.
Very good. Thanks, Mel. Well, I speak now and share with you our efforts in positioning energy efficiency in the Philippines through a policy-based approach by accelerating energy efficiency spending in the public sector. And I wear the hats of the Asia-Pacific ESCO Industry Alliance as well as the Philippine Energy Efficiency Alliance. Just a quick background, the Asia-Pacific ESCO Industry Alliance now embraces the ESCO associations of EMCA, which Lily Zhao proudly represents, India, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Taiwan. And as we speak, we are now reaching out to the ESCO communities of Thailand and Vietnam. So it's a platform for knowledge flow and capacity building, and very soon also ESCO transactions. The Philippine Energy Efficiency Alliance convenes now not only ESCOs, but energy efficiency technology solution service providers, financiers, investors, nonprofits, and large organizations which have mainstreamed energy efficiency in their core activities. And we have partnered with government, we continue to partner with government for enabling policy and market frameworks. And of course, the most significant of which is the recent passage of the new Energy Efficiency and Conservation Law, which we call Republic Act 11285. And it allows the country now to position energy efficiency as a primary resource, as infrastructure, alongside other primary energy resources. The Philippine Energy Efficiency Alliance did the economic math. We figured that the country will need $243 billion in capital mobilization to meet the Department of Energy's roadmap targets by 2040. But we believe that only a third of that could be mobilized through the business as usual modalities, the self-finance, the debt finance through banks, lease finance. We believe that the lion's share, or 2/3 of the capital requirement, will need to flow through innovative mechanisms, ESCO performance contracting, public-private partnership transactions, joint venture agreements with government corporations, and other large-scale government-led retrofit programs. The IEA issued a paper, a very interesting paper on the 8th of April, which positions energy efficiency as a possible economic stimulus, in that governments can deliver the stimulus at scale and speed and do large-scale investment programs. So this paper of IEA inspired the PE2 position and submitted a position to the Energy Ministry, called the Department of Energy, the planning agency called NEDA, and both chambers of Congress in late April. And what PE2 was saying is that, number one, energy efficiency is a cost-effective and swift job generator. It has proven speed of delivering economic impacts because of the shorter gestation time and the development time. It has minimal local environmental impacts compared to new construction. And it is said to be the most cost-effective GHG abatement strategy of government, even more cost-effective than renewables and deforestation. We could shave off 1.6 terawatt hours a year in final energy demand of public buildings. And the Philippines can leverage over 2 decades of experience in energy efficiency market transformation. So with the legacy outputs, one of them is that government banks, called government financial institutions, will have to access now cheaper funds to on-lend concessional energy efficiency loans, because the economy will need now to mobilize up to $243 billion in the next 20 years. But thankfully, after 29 years of languishing in Congress, we now have an energy efficiency law that was pushed and enacted last year. And this gives the chance for energy efficiency to be treated, procured, budgeted, implemented, disbursed as infrastructure projects. PE2 recommended over $1 billion package in an economic stimulus bill in late April. And a portion of that will be flowing through state-owned banks, lending for energy efficiency at concessional terms to both public sector entities as well as small and medium enterprises. The rest will flow as infrastructure funds for energy efficiency improvements of public facilities. The Department of Energy issues a no objection to the PE2 position in early May. And PE2 conducted a job survey. So we went out to the market and see that from the very upstream jobs in importation, manufacture, assembly, warehousing, all the way to downstream installation, construction, testing, O&M, and asset management, and many jobs in between, including inspection, M&V, energy audits, engineering, procurement. We see that a low of 18 jobs to a high of 200 jobs, from a range of $1 million project to a $4 million project can be created. Comparing the Philippine situation with other jurisdictions, in the United States, we see that in the last 3 years, 45 to 55% of new jobs in the US energy sector Wherefore, energy efficiency, outsizing that of renewables, power sector, and oil and gas. And there was also a survey of 35 energy efficiency programs and stimulus packages across the EU, the UK, and North America, and says that over 19 jobs were created for every 1 million euros invested in energy efficiency. In a recent IEA webinar, the Energy Efficiency Council, dear friend Rob Murray Leach said that, you know, a low of 58,000 to a high of 236,000 jobs are in the energy efficiency sector, outsizing all other energy activities. But going back to the Philippines, comparing energy efficiency now with mainstream infrastructure, and the typical energy efficiency infrastructure, energy, transport, and water is nicknamed Build infrastructure program by government. We see in the bottommost row of this tabulation, you see that close to 26 jobs per $1 million can be created out of energy, transport, and water infrastructure projects. But you see in the right-hand side of the screen, over 37 jobs per $1 million can actually be created out of energy efficiency project implementation. And it has a potential through the next 20 years, if the government succeeds in meeting the 2040 target, it has the potential of creating over 9 million jobs in the next 2 decades. So quickly wrap this up, and I'd like to spend more time in Q&A. While governments tend to prioritize infrastructure projects to stimulate the economy, and that's a good thing, we should support that. But there's nonetheless a clear, more sustainable, climate-friendly pathway to create more jobs, and that is through energy efficiency. And that legislation is just an initial step. Whether or not you succeed in getting explicit language of energy efficiency in enacted laws, there are still other policy interventions that would create or deliver the same impact of accelerated public spending in energy efficiency projects. So whether it be public buildings or water sector or municipal street lighting, we see that acceleration of, let's say, of next 10-year pipeline, accelerating the next 3 years, creating that job generation, and therefore becoming an effective stimulus activity. So I stop there, and I would be happy to take your questions during the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Alex. And it's interesting to see, you know, we've had a couple of economies here with India and China who have been at this for 30 years. Interesting to see a country who's been trying to make gains over that period, but struggling with the institutional structures and the legislation, but now you're ready to go. So hopefully you can pick up and learn from, and, you know, build on all of that other experience that has been generated by others too. And I know you've been part of this family for decades yourself, so I know you're in a great position to advise the Philippines on which things that they could prioritize at this time. So great, thank you very much indeed. We're going to move to a few questions now, and I'd like to take at this point, thank our participants for their questions. We'll deal with as many as we can, but I can't, of course, promise to manage to go through them all. So I'm going to start, if I may, with a question for Mr. Bakre. Hopefully, Mr. Bakre, are you still with us? Thank you, Mr. Bakre.
Yes, I am with you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to pick up on some of the things you were saying and that have come up in the other presentation. So you and I, we've talked a lot about the multiple benefits of energy efficiency over the years. And, you know, this is a really important time, of course, for trying to influence the very senior decision makers in our governments. So how hopeful are you that they will respond to the messages that energy efficiency can bring, you know, jobs, local jobs, good quality jobs, and benefits at this time? So when competing with government attention for stimulus money, how confident are you that energy efficiency can take a big part in this recovery process?
Yes, thank you. That's a very important question. But the first part is that how the government, how the stakeholders, how the participants, or how the policymakers are aware, including the actors which are actually going to contribute to the improvement in the economy. To large extent, they are aware. So, and that is because of the last 10 years and plus the successes. There are policies, there are programs which have been successful. Some of them which were not successful have been further modified to make it successful. So there is a lot of list of programs and actions which have proven their benefits. Now, how will they be further adopted to bring about the recovery, economic recovery, as well as the job creation? That's because that happens because of the two important things. One, the demand generation. There is a situation where the efficient products are available in the market, and if the consumers are quite positive to purchase that. So once there is a pull from the demand side. So on the product efficiency, if more and more consumers are made aware to procure efficient products, then there will be a greater movement or the action in terms of manufacturing, in terms of trading, replacement, etc. Mostly the replacement is the biggest part, where it's right from the simple things like lighting up to the larger things like air conditioners, fans, or even much other appliances, including the industrial appliances like compressor, etc., or the heavy duty pumps and the other machinery. So replacement is one area where the immediate stimulation, including the increase in demand and the job creation available. The second part, which is the investment. Now, to bring about all such things, one thing is the individual customers will try to purchase. But on a larger group, if institutional basis, the industry, the authorities, the municipalities, if they start putting investment, that will create further contracts. There will further the purchase orders, and then there will be service providers who will chip in. They will bring about the skilled laborers, the engineering professionals to carry out audit, to carry out ESCO case studies. So in that way, if the investment happens, and since the authorities may not have immediate money to put in, they have to go for probably the ESCO markets. In that case, there are schemes available to give some partial guarantee. So the investment is the second part, which will meet the demand and which will create stimulus from the supply side, thereby pulling up the requirement for appliances as well as the potential opportunities for job creation.
Thank you. I think that's a really interesting answer, and it comes back to some of the points that Lily made in her presentation as well. I think this concept of the jobs that are being created are in a whole range of sectors that are not directly necessarily the energy efficiency work, but it's knock-ons, it's the service providers, and it's creating new industries, as you say, which hopefully will be with us for many decades to come. So that's where we get our long-term effects from. So thank you for that. That's a very interesting point. I'd like, if I may, to move to Rio now, and just ask Rio, you gave us a comprehensive presentation, but could you just clarify what the ASEAN leaders' direction is for a regional cooperation post-COVID? So is there a plan for more enhanced regional cooperation on energy efficiency as part of recovery?
Thank you, Melanie. As I mentioned, ASEAN, as a regional, has already put commitment and also target on energy efficiency under the ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Corporations. So observing the global of infections, the pandemic impact, there is a lot of ideas and also discussion about how the long-term strategy measures that might be the more focus of the ASEAN member state for the to resolve the problem of the COVID-19 implication. So this is something that recognize the priorities. I mean, that is related to the health and also economic impact. But in terms of energy efficiency corporations, I think we haven't seen any change made by the regional in terms of the target. We keep the target of 30% energy intensity reduction by 2030. And if I can quote the directives of the leaders of ASEAN on what actually the plan to put energy efficiency, energy corporations in the stimulus, economic stimulus in ASEAN. So on 14 April 2020, the ASEAN leaders held the special ASEAN summit on COVID-19 online. So they expressed or reaffirm the regional determination and commitment to contain the spread of the coronavirus, of course, and also to minimize the impact of COVID-19 to the people of ASEAN. But on the other points of the summit, they also encourage the development of the post-pandemic recovery plan by exploring the arrangement to preserve supply chains connectivity among the ASEAN member states. Recovering from this current hard time can to be the pivotal moment for the ASEAN to redirect the energy priority for regional energy cooperation and to start moving forward through the decarbonization by ensuring energy security and resilience. So also structural measures raised by the leaders can should be done through the multilateral efforts, particularly to create enabling investment environment for clean energy, including energy efficiency. So it is obvious that ASEAN really want put energy efficiency post the COVID-19 pandemic by really looking or exploring what actually the effective and also innovative enabling environment for energy efficiency in the post COVID-19. That this has been emphasized by the leaders. So from the ASEAN Cooperation for Energy, we keep continuing to promote, especially what existing financing mechanisms that have been implemented by some member states, including exploring the new additional energy efficiency measures that might be included in the economic recovery plan, such as how to redirect the energy efficiency fund, promoting more trustworthy energy efficiency project in ASEAN region by advocating the public financing mechanism to support to increase the appetite of private investment and energy efficiency. So I think that is the directive of ASEAN leaders on energy cooperation in whole, and also in energy efficiency, specifically on how to create enabling environment for energy efficiency investment post COVID-19 pandemic in ASEAN region. Yeah,
thank you, Ria. That's very helpful, and hopefully then these kind of slowdowns in policy implementation that were announced early on, hopefully they can be reversed if that's the sentiment of the ASEAN group as a whole. So it would be important for us to monitor those decisions and see if there's anything that we can all collectively do to encourage the pace to pick up on energy efficiency policy implementation. So thank you very much. Lily, if I may move to you, I would just one question. I mean, you covered everything very comprehensively, but one of the things in energy efficiency that people always talk about is the transaction costs of smaller loans, smaller investments. Can you think of a role for ESCOs or measures that can be taken to reduce those transaction costs so that we can see more of that investment in the multitude, in the many tens and hundreds of thousands of smaller projects you know, particularly in the context of trying to improve energy efficiency for small and medium-sized enterprises. Do you have any thoughts on how we do that?
It's not that easy question.
No, that's why I'm asking you.
You know, the transaction cost for small and medium enterprises is especially higher in China as well. But in China, we have the World Bank loan program. As you know, that there is a special fund which provided guarantee for the SMEs. That means they can help them to not only to get the loan, but also to reduce the transaction cost. But frankly speaking, there is no very good solution for this question. But I think, especially for the SMEs in China, the small and medium ESCOs in China, they do need to, you know, to take some actions to improve their capacity of financing, not only technical capacities, but also the capacity of financing, how to finance their small projects. That means they have to tell the story to the investors in a different language. That's quite key. You know, all the ESCOs are always talking about their technologies, their technical solutions are so good, and how, you know, to improve the energy efficiency. But for the investors, they are not concerned, or they're not care about the energy efficiency. They're more concerned about the money they're going to invest, how to get them return. So I think that's the key. But for most of the SMEs in China, they are not, you know, quite familiar with how to deal with the investors, how to deal with the banks, or they're always talking the same story. They're talking their stories. They're not using the languages of the investors. So I think probably they need some capacity buildings, which can help them to, you know, but I don't think that this can help them to reduce the cost, the transaction cost. It can help them to get the loan easier, much easier. Probably they can get some equity or some other investors as well.
Interesting.
It's still a problem in China as well.
Yeah. It's an age-old problem. It's been a problem for the last 30 years, and we still need to try and find solutions.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that with the increased availability of low-cost sensors and telecoms technologies, that digitalization would help us transaction costs of energy efficiency projects and maybe commoditize certain types. So hopefully we can look into that with you in the future. But that financing point leads us neatly to Alex, who is somewhat of a specialist on this subject. And just briefly, Alex, you know, in terms of financing, what are the transformational impacts that financing stimulus programs could have on energy efficiency in the long term? Can you see the opportunity for a paradigm change here of some sort?
Oh, absolutely. What stimulus is doing is forcing governments right now to be creative in the way they procure energy efficiency projects, because they now have time, limited availability to certain funding. They have a limited window to implement certain energy efficiency projects if the stimulus programs are approved. So they have to get creative. They have to see how much they can stretch their procurement regulations now and do off-balance sheet financing through ESCO performance contracting negotiations and procurement. They can now consider bundling now public building retrofits and several local government street lighting projects and into larger public-private partnership transactions and joint venture agreements. So yes, it will push creativity in the way that money flows to projects right now. They will seek now some state-owned bank to finance, let's say 70%, and not depend entirely on the business as usual capital flows from approved appropriations from using taxpayers' money. So yes, the short answer is that if you push it as a stimulus program and accelerate public spending, it will force government now to use more innovative, creative way of flowing the money.
Thanks, Alex. Important point, and hopefully those we will see some long-term benefits out of this global crisis. And I think this could hopefully be one of them, where we see some changes in habits, changes in technologies that facilitate the acceleration of financing to energy efficiency programs.
Absolutely.
So thank you. I'm afraid we're out of time. So I'd just like to say, I mean, we've been through a really comprehensive view of public sector programs, long-term programs that have existed for decades, and how they're ready to absorb more funding that might be available through stimulus packages. How public spending on things like infrastructure can also play a big role and lock in positive outcomes at this very, very critical time. There's a sense that in some places there might have been a temptation to roll back or slow down policy implementation, but hopefully, because of all the information that's now being produced about the benefits of going hard on energy efficiency now, the job benefits in particular, not just any jobs, but good quality local jobs, hopefully this will reverse some of those early decisions that we saw being made. And this is why we, as an organisation, have put so much effort into new analysis and communicating that as widely as possible, as quickly as possible, with the hope that we can reverse some of those trends and really take advantage of this rather remarkable point we find ourselves in time. So thank you, everybody. Thank you to the presenters for their wisdom, to our participants for their questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them all. And this is just the start of a conversation. So we will continue to run webinars such as this and dig into some of these subject areas in some more depth. So thank you all. And with that, I wish everybody a good day.